Good morning guys. Today I want to talk to you about the Transport Manager CPC course I've recently completed. So in this video I'm going to talk about whether the course is hard, whether I think that you should do it, and how I felt after completing the course and whether I felt like I was ready to actually be a transport manager. So we'll start off with, if you haven't seen my series of vlogs that I've done vlogging about the Transport Manager CPC course, then you should check it out. I'm going to put the link somewhere or maybe in the description, and then you can check that out. But otherwise, the Transport Manager CPC course I did with MDR Training, and you get a folder like this, and this folder is 533 pages thick. It's a thick folder, right? And there's two exams for the Transport Manager CPC. There's a multiple choice exam, which has 60 questions in there. And that multiple choice exam, those questions could be anything from those 500 pages, right? That's a lot of stuff you have to know, right? A case studies exam is more about practical stuff. So you have to be able to do a driver schedule. You have to be able to do costings, and you also have got various other exercises, some relating to operator licensing and other stuff from that folder. But the difference with the case study exam is you can take your notes with you. So believe it or not, you can take that giant folder with you in there, because the exam is not asking you questions and answers, it's asking you to apply that knowledge. So you can use your folder to find the information you need and apply the knowledge to answer the question. Anyway, so in those 523 pages, that's not the only folder you get, by the way. You also get this one with MDR, which is also quite a hefty folder. But that's things like the DVSA's Guide to Maintaining Roadworthiness and other things that will help you. There's also some things in there that help you with like the maths part of the exam, so things like exchange rates and things like that, and helping you with speed, distance and time and tax and percentages and maths revision. Basically, it's like a maths revision folder and other helpful bits and bobs in there that go alongside that folder, if that makes sense. In the course, there's a lot that you learn that's probably things you're not going to use again. So I'll run you through just some examples of the content of the course. So you've got sections about driver's hours and the working time directive. Things about weekly rest, daily rest, ferry crossings, GB domestic rules, double manning, all of these kinds of things. And you've got to know those rules, because in that multiple choice exam, you could be asked about any of those rules. And in your case study exam, you have to prepare a driver schedule where you're given some kind of story about some drivers in a transport company, and you have to make the schedule. Now, coming from a driver's perspective, the schedules aren't real. So for example, you have to plan the schedule to 4.5 hours, and you have to imagine that there will be the perfect lay-by there for you to park in. So all the times have to be exact. It doesn't account for traffic hold-ups and things. So it's a skill that you have to do to test your knowledge of the driver's hours. So you have to know these driver's hours and working time rules. You have to know them solid. You have to know about records and what kinds of records to keep relating to driver's hours and tachographs and all of these kinds of things. And then it moves on to financial management. And there are various formulas and ratios that you have to be familiar with, such as an acid test ratio or working capital. Now, coming from a driver's perspective, what on earth do they mean? You know, how do you calculate them? What they're even for? You have to learn about that, and you have to learn about the different types of accounts, like a trading account, a profit and loss account, and a balance sheet, and what you find on each one, because again, you could be asked about any of this stuff. You have to know about costings, so costings for your vehicles, how to cost your jobs, running costs, fixed costs, profits, assets, fixed assets, current assets, liabilities. You have to know about all of this stuff. You have to know about tax, VAT, corporation taxes, and then you learn a lot about different types of companies like sole traders, limited companies, partnerships, how to form a limited company, and so on. So I think a lot of this Transport Manager course is based on becoming an owner-operator or starting your own business, where you still need this same qualification if you're going to go in and be the transport manager for someone else's business. So a lot of companies are not going to have you, one single person, if they're a big company with 50 vehicles. They're not going to have you doing all of this stuff. You're not going to be doing the finances. They're going to have a finance department. You're not going to be forming a limited company. It's already going to be formed. So a lot of this course is quite business oriented. There's a lot in there about running your own business. I think it's from the perspective that a lot of people come on this course to buy their own truck, to be an owner of the truck and be the operator as well. Where in reality, a lot of this stuff would be taken by other departments within the company. And even if you became an owner-operator, you could hire people to do this stuff for you. You have to learn about maintenance and inspections, the operator compliance risk score, driver licensing, accident procedures, employment law, things like contracts, employee rights, maternity, sick pay. You have to know about health and safety, business documents like invoices, performers, and so on. You have to know about IT, you have to know about marketing, you have to know about weights and dimension, gross vehicle weight, gross train weight, unladen weight, curbside weight. You have to know about axle limits, wide loads, long loads, and how you deal with them, like marker boards and escorts. You have to know about safe loading in regards to carrying food, carrying animal livestock, carrying dangerous goods. You have to know about VED, which is vehicle excise duty, which is like road tax for your vehicles and how you calculate it. You have to know about the traffic laws and the speed regulations, especially if you're doing STGOs. And then just when you think you've got a hold of everything, and you've got a hold of your driver's hours, your employment law, your contracts, your sole traders, your partnerships, then you get on to the international module. International module, I wrote some down. You have to know about CMR, tolls, winter regulations in other countries, carnets, bilateral permits, cabotage, and all of this crazy stuff that you've probably never heard of. So there's a lot in there to learn, and you have to know it, because those 60 multiple choice questions could be anything from the folder, so you have to know it. So like I said, a lot of it is business oriented, where in reality, if you were a transport manager for a large, medium-sized company, you're already going to have a finance, marketing, human resources, health and safety department. That's not going to be something you're going to be doing as the transport manager, but you have to know about this stuff to pass the exam. And I think that's why the practice questions are really important. So MDR Training give you a lot of practice questions. Each section within the folder has a set of practice questions for the multiple choice, and also practice questions for the case study part, which you could get asked about any parts of the folder. So it gives you a chance to practice using your folder to find the information that you need, so when it comes to the exam, you know where to find that information. I did find the course quite fast-paced, and I was at quite an advantage really, because I was one of 2 drivers that were on our course. So I think one was an ex-driver. I was the only current driver on the course in our online class, what we did. And I had a big advantage because I already knew about driver's hours, working time directive, tachographs, and all these kind of things. Where the people that were coming from the office, or people that were partners of people that had bought their own truck, didn't know about these rules, so they had to learn it all from scratch, and it is a lot to learn. So when you're talking about things you've not heard of, it does feel fast-paced, so it falls on you to be able to study and put the time in, because you are not going to pass this course by attending the class or the sessions and then not doing anything afterwards. My own personal course was 7 weeks. It was 2 evening sessions a week from 6 o'clock until 9 o'clock for 7 weeks. And then we had 2 classroom revision sessions where I travelled to MDR's offices in Colville, Leicestershire. And then on the final day were the 2 exams on the same day. So you are not going to pass the course by attending your sessions and then not thinking about the course. You have to put that study in. You have to find time to go through this folder, to read it, to do the practice questions that you're given. MDR has an online portal that has lots of practice questions, exercises, things like that, and you get your scores so you can retake the exams. There's also banks of like mock exam papers as well, and past papers that you can have a go at. And I think that is vitally important to passing this course. You've got to put the work in. So once you've passed the course, now what? So I know about all of this information. I have the content of those 523 pages up here. Now what? I don't feel confident on how to be a transport manager practically. If I went for a job interview, I don't even think I'd pass the interview. Because it's one thing knowing the content, knowing what you're supposed to do, but how do you actually do it? How do you achieve what you need to achieve? How do you practically be a transport manager? What do you do day to day? How do you manage the drivers? If you've got drivers that keep getting infringements, how do you manage that as a transport manager? How does someone fresh out the exam like me manage a fleet of 50 vehicles? How do I do that? That they teach you what you need to know in the transport manager course to pass the exam, but there's no practical side of it. How do you actually do the job? Where do I get help? Who do I ask? How do I set myself up as a transport manager fresh in a company? What do I need to look for? How do I set up my folders and paperwork? If the DVSA come knocking and they want to do an inspection, what are they looking for? What do I need to show them? And a lot of jobs on the job websites, because I've been looking, are asking for transport managers with experience. So how am I going to go in as a newly qualified transport manager with no experience? I would rely on someone else to teach me. And sometimes there isn't that option available for you. Sometimes there isn't someone there to teach you and train you. I know I have to download the driver's cards. How do I download the cards? What software do I need? How do I analyse it? On the analysing software, what is it showing me? How do I interpret it? When my vehicles come back from inspection, how do I interpret the inspection sheet? Brake tests. When I get a brake test report, how do I interpret it? Because a brake test report can say pass, but it's not really a pass. Now, if you are a transport manager with some experience, you'll know what I mean by that. If you're completely new, you're not going to have any idea. Even, what are my responsibilities as a transport manager? What do I do day to day? What is my responsibility and what isn't? Because a lot of companies put things on you that aren't your responsibility. How do I know what my responsibilities are as a transport manager? And things that they aren't letting me have responsibility of, for example. If someone else is overseeing the maintenance, well, I need to oversee that too if I'm a transport manager. I need to keep a looking on that. So MDR are aware of this problem, that you come out of the exam and you don't actually know how to do the job. So MDR, along with the instructor, Tom, have put together a course called Transport Manager Unlocked. And it basically is everything I've just talked about. It teaches you how to do the job practically. Now, this course It's not just for those people who are new transport manager passes, it's for people with experience as well, because what Tom goes through with you is best practice transport managing. So if you're a transport manager and you want to know what you're doing right or wrong, or you want some tips and tricks, then this is the course for you. And also, like me, if you're fresh out the exam and you really don't know, you ask from your elbow, as they say. So my friends at MDR invited me to attend this course, and while I was there, I did a bit of filming for them and made this trailer for their website. Have a look at this.
So Transport Manager Unlocked is the course we've come up with to bridge the gap between when you pass your Transport Manager CPC qualification to actually how to do the job and how to be that continuous and effective transport manager that we all feel like we should be out of the exam, but there's always that gap, that lack of confidence between the job itself and the qualification. So we cover various topics from how to manage the drivers, including tachograph, software examples, how to develop an infringement report, how to retrain the drivers. We talk about vehicle maintenance, how to carry out a walk-around check, how to check on the quality of a walk-around check, every aspect relating to vehicle maintenance. So we focus a lot on the paperwork side because there is so much paperwork to get right. We talk about how to interpret inspection reports, how to find mistakes, how to interpret a brake test to make sure it's meaningful, the rest of your maintenance records, and how to get replacement documents if you don't have them. We'll also show you how to apply for the operator license, step by step, the tips and tricks to make sure your license application comes back as quick as possible, and how to avoid the common pitfalls from applications. And then how to manage the operations day to day, things like bridge strikes, OCRS, third-party trailers, all of these subjects that we all have questions about. We find there's a lack of knowledge there, a lack of experience, how to actually achieve what the DVSA and traffic commissioners are asking for. Particularly in the last 2 years, there's a lot that has changed in terms of enforcement. So it's all about building that confidence, that kind of practical knowledge and experience that's going to help you in your career as a transport manager.
Now, I attended only the second run of this course, so Tom had only delivered this course just one time before, and it was a 3-day course. And I can't get across to you how valuable this course was. Coming from Tom, who is an experienced transport manager and transport consultant, he's been in the industry for so long now, he is sharing with us real examples of things he's experienced, real examples of brake test reports, real examples of inspections. And we are learning from someone who's already been out there and made mistakes and learnt from them. So it really is a valuable course in that sense. So on the course you learn how to manage the drivers. Tom recommends what kind of software to use, how to download the cards, how to download the vehicle units, how to account for things like missing mileage when the truck has moved without a card in there. You need to account for that because you could get in trouble. Inductions, what do you do with your drivers on an induction? What should be in there? What kind of information do you give the driver in the driver handbook? How can you care for your drivers, your driver's health, your driver's safety? How can you train your drivers? How can you help them when they get infringements? You learn about all of these things, and also how do you deal with having a temporary driver like an agency driver? What can you do as a transport manager? Tom also discusses your role as a transport manager, what is expected of you, and what the statutory documents actually say. What is your responsibility? What isn't your responsibility? And he also talks you through step by step how to apply for an operator license. So you need a named transport manager to be able to apply for an operator license. So that is something that you do as the transport manager, or you can do. And Tom shows you how to do it step by step, because a lot of mistakes can be made on these applications that can delay them. So he shares with you some tips and tricks on how to apply and how to get the application through first time. And it's really, in the Transport Manager course, you learn about what you need to apply for an O licence, but you don't actually know how to do it. So Tom shows you on the computer step by step how you apply for the licence. And for your newspaper advert, when you're applying for a new operating centre, you need to put an advert in the local newspaper for 21 days. We know that from the Transport Manager course, but he teaches you how to write the advert, what you need to put in there. And also where to find the information that you need. So when you're there working as a transport manager and you need help, where do you find this information? Every day, Tom sent an email with some interesting links on there. So it's links to find the information that you need. So many. So you don't have to ask your friend who might not know the answer for help. Or you don't have to ask someone on a group on Facebook for the answer. You know where to go to find the right answer. He also talks you through how to be an external transport manager, how to set your own rates, and actually where to find work as an external transport manager, which is someone that doesn't work for the company full time. A good example would be if you're working with someone who's just bought their own truck, but they don't want to be the transport manager. So they're only running maybe 1 or 2 lorries. They don't want to employ you 40 hours a week. So you go in as an external transport manager and do the same thing, but you invoice them at the end of the month instead. So you don't work there full time. He teaches you about policies and how to write policies, what kinds of policies you need. He also teaches you a lot about maintenance, things that you should check, things to look out for, fleet lists, how to select a good maintenance provider, how to audit them, how to set up your own maintenance plan, what should your maintenance plan include, safety recalls from manufacturers, where do you find them? How can you evidence that you have done the repairs on a safety recall, for example? How to interpret the inspection reports and the brake test reports. If you're getting issues coming on your 6-week inspection of tyres, why is that happening? Tyres are a driver reportable defect. When the drivers are doing their walk around checks in the morning, if they're doing them correctly, then you shouldn't be getting tyre issues on a 6-weekly inspection. Maybe there's a flaw in the system. So you're taught about how to manage all of this. Then you learn about tyre management, the dates on tyres, because tyres have dates on them from when they were manufactured, where to find that information. Then you talk about wheel security, re-torquing the wheel nuts after a wheel has been changed. How do you find out the torque that you need, where to find that information? And also how to actually use a torque wrench and how to complete a walk around check correctly. What should you be expecting your drivers to do? You also learn about your annual MOT inspections. And if you get failures, investigating why it failed. How did it happen? Because if you've got a solid maintenance schedule and things, then you shouldn't be getting MOT failures. That can impact on your operator score. And if you have an operator score that's amber or red, it means that the DVSA are more likely to target your vehicles for a roadside check. You also learn about safe loading and where to find the information relating to safe loading, how to train your drivers, where to find the guidance for that. We also talked about vehicle and site security, and we went through some examples of where people have used vehicles as terrorist attacks, using the vehicle as a weapon. We talked about how important it is to make sure the keys are kept in a safe location and make sure that your yard is secure. What procedures do you have in place if a vehicle is stolen? And then we talked about third-party trailers, which is quite a hot topic at the moment. Now Amazon have their own freight scheme. A third-party trailer, a trailer that belongs to someone else, becomes yours in terms of your operator license. So if you get a roadside check, that trailer becomes yours. So you need to make sure that you know if the trailer has an MOT and how you check that. and how you can teach your drivers how to check that. Is it roadworthy? When's the last time it was inspected? And all the rules and procedures around third-party trailers. Also load security. When one of your drivers is towing that trailer, the load security is your responsibility. How can your driver have the responsibility of the load when sometimes you can't even open the trailers because they're sealed? So it's all these things about third-party trailers that you need to be aware of as a transport manager. We also talked about bridge strike policies, low emission zones and permits, and also the star ratings for vehicles for those areas. We talked about audits as well and how you can make sure that your procedures and your systems are working effectively. How can you review that? And I think the most important and most useful thing that we did is run through a DVSA inspection document. So when the DVSA visit your operating centre, what are they looking for? What do they want to check? What do they want to see? And for each part of the document, we ran through together with Tom what we would be expected to do as transport managers and how we can evidence that we've done these things. So I think that was so valuable information because there's such a lot that the transport manager does that people fresh out the exam, or I should say, there's such a lot that the transport manager is responsible for that when you come out the exam, you're not even aware of. You're not even aware of these things. So I left the 3-day Transport Manager Unlock course feeling a lot more confident. There were plenty of handouts that I've got in another folder down here. Not the same one as before, but I've got a lot of handouts here, things to help me. I know what to look for now when I visit a client. I know what I need to do day to day as a transport manager. I know how to interpret the paperwork and the brake tests. I know how to select a good maintenance provider. I know what records I need to keep and how to keep them. I know how to set myself up now. I know how to interpret the tachograph cards and the software and what kind of software I'll need and how to use it. I know how to apply for an operator licence, what I actually need to do. I know how and where to get replacement documents for things that are missing, and I also know how I can protect myself against operators or drivers that may not listen to me as a transport manager. I know where to find the latest information in this ever-changing industry. So most of all, I've left the course really feeling like I know how to be a transport manager, how to do the job practically. I've really learned a lot in those 3 days, and it's a course, like I said, I recommend to you if you are a transport manager or you're a new pass. Get yourself on this course. Seriously, you'll learn a lot. So the transport manager qualification, is it worth it? It looks good on your CV. You know, in my opinion, people kind of treat you slightly differently when they know you have that qualification, particularly as a driver, because they know I understand the driver's hours rules. You know, I understand what's expected of me. I understand the importance of the walk-around checks and the implications if they're not done correctly. So it looks good on your CV and it shows that you have a good understanding of the industry. With this qualification, you can even progress on to being a transport consultant, where you can go in and visit other companies and audit them if they're doing things properly. So if you ever get the chance to do your Transport Manager CPC, do it. You know, it's not impossible. The questions are multiple choice, so one of the 4 answers will be the correct one. It's not like a GCSE exam where you have to know the answer and write it down yourself. You know, it is a multiple choice, and if you put your work in and you study, you'll pass it. And when you've passed it, the best advice I can give to you is get on a course like Transport Manager Unlocked, because it will give you the confidence that you need to do your job as a transport manager. I'm so grateful MDR invited me to the course. So if you want to check out the course Transport Manager Unlocked, Have a look in the description for the link. And of course, I want to thank MDR Training that have put me through my Transport Manager CPC course and the Transport Manager Unlock course and given me the tools I need to be a successful transport manager. So thank you. Check them out in the description. If you've liked this video, you can give me a thumbs up. And of course, if you want to stay tuned with me and my adventures, then you could subscribe. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one.